Welcome to another deep dive, you guys. Today we are going to be looking at 50 Shades of Grey,
Oh, wow.
Chapter 1.
Okay.
Just a heads up that there are 3 parts to this deep dive.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
50 Shades of Grey, the book that launched like 1,000 think pieces.
Right.
Maybe a few questionable Halloween costumes as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But we're here to go like beyond the hype.
Okay.
And really look at what makes this first chapter tick.
Okay.
Some of the themes that we're going to be looking at are first impressions, those sizzling power dynamics,
Okay.
and the desires lurking beneath the surface.
I love that.
Yeah.
Lurking beneath the surface.
Okay.
So,
It is interesting how E.L. James sets these 2 contrasting worlds up right from the start.
yeah.
We meet Anastasia, and she's so relatable with her anxieties about her exams and her self-deprecating humor about her appearance. Then, boom, we are in Christian Grey's domain.
Yeah.
All sleek lines and expensive minimalism.
It's a very deliberate choice, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And that contrast extends to the characters themselves.
Yes.
So Anastasia is literally tripping over herself upon entering Christian's office, highlighting her nervousness, maybe even like a sense of feeling out of place in this polished corporate world.
It's almost as if she's physically stumbling over the power differential between them.
Yeah.
She's the student, venturing into the realm of a powerful CEO.
Yeah.
And remember how Christian is described? He's not merely good looking, he's beautiful.
Right.
There's this immediate awareness of his impact,
Yeah.
particularly on Anastasia.
Right. And she's both flustered and intrigued by him. We get these glimpses into her inner monologue where she notices those intense, bright gray eyes and that unruly, dark, copper-colored hair.
Right.
James uses these very physical details to underscore his magnetic pull.
Yeah, and it's important to note that while Anastasia's captivated by Christian, she's also uncomfortable with his demeanor. She picks up on his slight arrogance and the way he exudes, control.
Right.
This internal conflict, the push and pull between desire and unease.
Yeah.
That's a key element from the start.
It makes you wonder, is this an immediate red flag for Anastasia, or is it part of what draws her to him? And speaking of red flags, that whole exchange where Christian asks about her boyfriend and then declares he's not into monogamy.
Right.
Talk about setting the tone.
It's a bold statement, and it throws Anastasia off balance.
Yeah.
This is not your typical interview banter.
Right.
It raises the question, is he testing her boundaries? Or is it a raw, unfiltered glimpse into his personality? A warning of what she might encounter if she gets closer?
Yeah. And he certainly doesn't shy away from taking control of the interview.
Right.
He deflects personal questions, especially that pointed inquiry about his sexuality.
Yes.
Instead, he steers the conversation toward his interests, his business philosophy, and even Anastasia's future plans. It's like he's interviewing her as much as she's interviewing him.
That shift in dynamic is crucial. He goes from being the subject of the interview to subtly taking command.
Right.
And notice his language. He uses phrases like, I exercise control in all things, and I need to know how things work. This need to understand and dominate extends beyond his business ventures. It hints at how he might approach relationships as well.
And speaking of relationships, there's a definite subtext building between them, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
That moment when their fingers accidentally touch and Anastasia feels this weird shiver.
Yes.
It's the first spark of something more than just professional curiosity.
James is masterful at building tension through these seemingly insignificant moments that touch the lingering eye contact, the way they're suddenly hyper-aware of each other's physical presence. It creates a palpable sense of anticipation. And remember that subtle detail about Christian stroking his finger across his lips.
Oh, yeah.
It's a gesture that speaks volumes.
It feels almost predatory, doesn't it? Like he's savoring the effect he has on her, and then out of the blue, he offers her an internship.
Right.
It seems generous, but there's a calculated element to it, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's a power move, disguised as kindness.
Right.
He's dangling an opportunity, a chance to enter his world, but on his terms.
Yeah.
It leaves us and Anastasia wondering, is this genuine interest in her potential, or is it the first step in a much more complex game?
And the way they say goodbye, using each other's first names for the first time, it's electric.
I know, right?
It feels like a line has been crossed and there's no going back.
It signifies a shift in their dynamic. The formal interview is over and something more personal, more intimate has begun.
Right.
It's the first hint of the blurred lines and power struggles that will define their relationship.
Okay, so we've got this whirlwind introduction to two very different characters, a palpable sense of attraction, and a whole lot of unanswered questions.
Yes.
Let's dig deeper into some of the key themes and see what insights we can unearth.
What strikes me is the way James immediately establishes the theme of control.
Okay.
It's not just about Christian's wealth and dominance, but also his need to understand and manage everything around him, from business to, well, potentially even relationships.
That's so true. He's almost obsessive about knowledge and order.
Yes.
It makes you wonder if it's a defense mechanism, a way of keeping chaos at bay.
I think that's a brilliant observation.
Yeah.
It raises the question, what is Christian trying to control and why?
Right.
Is it rooted in insecurity, a need to protect himself from vulnerability? Or is it something darker, a desire to exert power over others?
And what about Anastasia? Is she drawn to this powerful figure because she seeks a sense of security? Or is there something deeper at play, a subconscious desire to explore her own boundaries?
That's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Is she unconsciously seeking a force that will challenge her, push her outside her comfort zone?
Remember those Triton paintings in Christian's office, the ones depicting those like everyday objects?
Yeah.
It feels like there's a deeper meaning there.
I agree.
They're simple, yet they hold a certain allure.
It's as if James is hinting at the hidden complexities beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Both Anastasia and Christian are drawn to something beyond the obvious, something they can't quite articulate yet. It's like those paintings, there's more to them than meets the eye.
It's fascinating how much James packs into this first chapter: intriguing characters, a clash of personalities, and those subtle clues about the deeper themes at play.
Right.
It definitely leaves you wanting more.
It's a masterclass in setting the stage for a complex and passionate story.
Yeah.
We're hooked by the chemistry, intrigued by the power dynamics, and left wondering where this intense connection will lead.
Great point. And speaking of being led, we're going to...
Yeah. Let's talk about the cultural impact 50 Shades had. You know, this book wasn't just a bestseller.
Right.
It sparked this like global conversation about relationship, sexuality, and female desire.
Yeah, it definitely pushed boundaries.
Yeah.
I remember like people talking about it everywhere.
I know.
Like book clubs, talk shows, even like the news.
It was everywhere. It tapped into something that resonated with a huge audience, particularly women. Some critics argued that it romanticized like an unhealthy power dynamic, while others praised it for exploring female sexuality in a way that hadn't really been done before in mainstream fiction.
Regardless of like your stance on the book.
Right.
There's no denying that 50 Shades brought conversations about BDSM and consent topics that were often taboo into the mainstream. Do you think that like open dialogue contributed to its massive success?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think it definitely played a role. 50 Shades challenged societal norms and pushed the boundaries of what was considered like acceptable to read and discuss.
Yeah.
Particularly for women.
Okay, but let's bring it back to chapter 1.
Okay.
We talked about how Christian controls the interview.
Right.
But what about Anastasia's reactions? I noticed that she's constantly tucking her hair behind her ear, smoothing it down.
Yeah.
Seems like a physical manifestation of her nervousness.
I see that too. It's a subtle detail, but it speaks volumes about her inner turmoil. She's attracted to him.
Right.
But also intimidated by his power and the effect he has on her.
Right.
And that internal conflict is a key element of her character throughout the entire book.
Yeah.
We see it again when she blushes, bites her lip, these little gestures that betray her nervousness.
I remember how Christian keeps stroking his finger across his lips.
Yeah.
It's almost predatory.
Yeah.
Like he's savoring her discomfort.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
It could be interpreted as a power play, absolutely.
Right.
He's aware of his attractiveness and the way he makes her react, and he enjoys being in control.
But there's also a vulnerability there, isn't there? A hint of insecurity that like peeks through his dominant demeanor.
Sure.
He seems almost surprised when Anastasia pushes back.
Yeah.
Like when she challenges his views on relationships.
Yes. He's so used to getting his way.
Right.
And her defiance, however slight, intrigues him. It's like he's encountered a puzzle he can't immediately solve.
It's so interesting how their roles almost reverse during the interview.
Right.
At first, Anastasia is the one asking the questions,
Mm-hmm.
trying to maintain a professional distance.
Yeah.
But as the conversation progresses, Christian takes control,
Yes.
turning the tables and probing into her life, her ambitions, her dreams.
He's not content with just answering her questions.
Right.
He wants to understand her.
Yeah.
To dissect her almost like a specimen under a microscope.
It's true.
Remember when he asks her, "What are your plans after graduation, Miss Steele?"
Oh, yeah.
It feels like more than just polite conversation.
Right. It feels like he's already assessing her.
Yes.
Trying to figure out where she fits into his carefully controlled world.
That's a great point. It suggests that he's already thinking beyond the interview, considering her potential role in his life.
Yeah.
And that's where that internship offer comes in.
Right.
It's not just a job. It's an invitation into his world, a world of wealth, power, and secrets.
And the way they say goodbye, exchanging first names as the elevator doors close.
I know.
It's electrifying.
It's so good.
You can feel the tension crackling between them.
It's a turning point.
Yeah.
They've crossed a line and there's no going back.
Yeah.
We know instinctively that their lives are going to be intertwined in a way neither of them could have anticipated.
Chapter 1 is really just the tip of the iceberg, when you say.
Totally.
It sets the stage for a roller coaster of emotions, desires, and power struggles that will unfold in the chapters to come.
Absolutely, and that's what keeps readers hooked. It's not just about the sex.
Right.
It's about the psychological dance between these two characters.
Yeah.
The exploration of their deepest desires and fears.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story about control and surrender, about finding yourself in the most unexpected of places.
It's also interesting to consider the symbolism of the color gray in the title.
Oh, yeah.
Gray is a color that represents ambiguity, a blend of black and white.
Right?
Do you think that reflects the complexities of Christian's character? The blurring of lines between dominance and vulnerability.
That's a fantastic insight.
Yeah.
Gray can also symbolize a lack of emotion, a detachment that could be interpreted as a consequence of Christopher's traumatic past.
Right.
Remember, we get hints of a difficult childhood later in the book?
Yeah.
Perhaps this emotional guardedness is a way of protecting himself.
And Anastasia, with her innocent, almost naive perspective,
Yes.
represents a challenge to that guardedness.
I agree.
She embodies a world of emotions and experiences that Christian has kept at bay. Do you think their connection could represent a journey of self-discovery for both of them?
Absolutely, and that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding. We're not just reading the words.
Yeah.
We're analyzing the nuances, the hidden meanings, the emotional undercurrents that drive the narrative.
Speaking of hidden meanings,
Okay.
let's talk about those Troughton paintings again.
Okay.
The fact that Christian draws attention to them,
Yeah.
that he specifically mentions the artist's name,
Right.
it feels significant.
It's definitely a clue.
Yeah.
Those seemingly ordinary objects elevated to art,
Right.
they mirror the transformation that both Anastasia and Christian will undergo throughout the story. They're both drawn to something beyond the surface, something hidden and unexplored within themselves and each other. It's amazing how much we can unpack from just one chapter.
Yeah, and speaking of unpacking, let's revisit that internship offer.
Okay.
It comes across as both alluring and unsettling, don't you think?
Definitely, it's like a golden ticket to a world that most people only dream of. You know, private jets, designer clothes.
Right, the whole shebang.
The whole shebang, but it comes with a catch, right?
Yeah.
Christian's world operates on his terms.
Right.
And those terms might not be for everyone.
It makes you wonder if Anastasia fully grasps what she might be getting into.
Yeah.
She's intelligent-driven, but also quite innocent in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that naivete makes her more vulnerable to Christian's influence?
It's an interesting question. On the one hand, her lack of experience in this like high-stakes world could make her susceptible to manipulation.
Right.
But on the other hand, her innocence might also be her strength.
Okay.
It allows her to challenge Christian's assumptions, to question his worldview in a way that others haven't dared to do.
Remember how she pushes back when he says he doesn't believe in marriage?
Oh, yeah.
It's a small moment, but it shows she's not afraid to voice her own opinions,
Right.
even when they clash with his.
Exactly. That independent streak is crucial to her character.
Yeah.
It suggests she won't simply be a passive participant in this relationship.
Right.
She'll demand to be heard, to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets the stage for a dynamic power struggle, one where both characters have the potential to evolve and change.
And let's not forget the symbolism of names. Anastasia means resurrection.
Right.
Hinting at a potential transformation for her and Christian. Well, the name speaks for itself.
Sure does.
Do you think there's a deliberate irony in his name, considering his unconventional beliefs and desires?
Absolutely. It adds another layer of complexity to their dynamic.
Yeah.
Will Anastasia, with her potential for renewal, somehow save Christian from his inner demons?
Mm-hmm.
Or will he try to mold her into his image, suppressing her spirit in the process?
It's like we're witnessing the beginning of a chess match.
Yeah.
Each move carefully calculated, the stakes incredibly high. And remember, this is just chapter 1.
I know.
We haven't even scratched the surface of the contracts, the red room, the emotional roller coaster that lies ahead.
It's a testament to James's skill as a writer that she can create such a captivating world filled with complex characters and simmering tension in just a few pages. She leaves us with more questions than answers, forcing us to keep reading to unravel the mystery of Christian Grey and the impact he'll have on Anastasia Steele.
So for our listeners out there, here's a final thought to consider as you continue reading.
Okay.
Pay attention to the recurring motifs of light and darkness throughout the book. How do they reflect the inner struggles of both characters? The push and pull between desire and fear, control and surrender.
That's a fantastic point. It's in those contrasts, those shades of gray, that the true essence of this story lies. And as you delve deeper into their world, remember that there's more to these characters than meets the eye. Look beyond the surface, question their motivations, and you'll discover a story that's both provocative and deeply human.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the first chapter of 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes.
We hope you enjoyed our exploration of this complex and often controversial novel. Until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.